Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim in Green Bay. We'll have Emilio joining us shortly. Jacob is tied up at the office tonight, literally, so he will not be on the show. But
you sure Tim, he's at the office? He's. It's not bingo night. I forgot. Is bingo night Monday night or Tuesday night?
I think bingo night could be any night when it comes to Jacob. You know what I mean? Ain't nothing for him to carry around one of those little bingo ball machines. You know, you never know when a party's going to break out, Tim. Never know when opportunity's gonna come calling. So
hey, stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. He said big time players make plays in big times, right? So anyway, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble. I have no idea how we're still live, but here we are, and excited to talk some Green Bay Packers this evening. As like I said, Emilio should be joining us here shortly. So, Greg Rice, is Jacob a senior citizen, Hunter?
No comment.
I think it's pretty accurate, this depiction. Oh. All right. So we're going to continue our breakdown of the depth chart and dive into cornerback and center. Before we do, we're going to talk a little Barryn Sorrell. If we have time, we'll hit the Colin Oliver scouting report. Really excited about kind of laying out the details there. And then if we have time after that, we'll be doing the Savion Williams Chalk Talk. Just don't let me forget, Tim, we are doing a giveaway tonight. We were supposed to do last night for the autographed rookie Bo Melton cards. So we got that teed up, ready to go. And I want to say this, guys. This will be the last giveaway we do with the YouTube members. Okay. We've been, talking for about, 3 or 4 months now. We want to switch everything over to Patreon. It doesn't mean you can't be a YouTube member. That will stay live. If you guys want to support that way, that's cool. It's just gotten to be it's a bit of a hassle trying to run down all the CSVs from YouTube and all the CSV that you got to download and put into the system, do the giveaways over on Patreon. So like we said before, it's the same price, roughly $3 to join our Patreon group. So we want to make sure that we're getting everybody to the Patreon community as opposed to, just YouTube memberships. Again, if you want to support YouTube memberships, that's totally cool. We appreciate that, but it's just got to be a little bit. I'm spending more time trying to get the giveaways organized and creating content, Tim. So it's got a little bit out of hand, and we're going to be doing a partnership here real soon with a charity I'm really excited about. I'm going to make a pretty significant donation to it, me personally, and then we're going to tie in a giveaway with it as well, just a way to give back to those in need. So I'll give you guys all the information on that here real soon. So Greg Rice says, will the Patreon drawing be rigged? Not as rigged as the YouTube one, but it will be rigged there, Greg. So just so you know, full disclosure there, right? So we got Josh signing in now. What's up, guys? What's up to you, Josh? Hopefully you had a great day, man. All right, so first things first, Tim, a little bit of news broke today. Listen, it ain't crazy news, but we were talking about the wide receiver room. The Packers did release wide receiver Tulu Griffin. He was signed in January to a futures deal at the time. The Packers now have an open roster spot after rookie minicamp. So, breaking news. Didn't think he was going to make the roster anyway, right? But, again, it's just Goody kind of covering all the bases and then coming out of the draft and free agency and looking up and saying, all right, we got plenty of wide receivers to choose from now. I was listening to Ryan's pod earlier, man, oh, man. Now we don't know if Mecole Hardman's going to make the roster, right? I think it'll be a hell of a camp battle. I really do. But we kind of broke that down a little bit earlier for sure. So, Tim, anything you want to hit on before we dive into the cornerback safety room? I mean, that wide receiver transaction over Tulu Griffin, obviously not a big deal, right?
Not a big shocker. And like, if you follow this game at all, you know that this is probably good for both Tulu Griffin and the Packers. It's done early. Hopefully he can go somewhere and get picked up. And have a good year for himself, or try and make a squad somewhere. And in the meantime, for the Packers, it makes a little room in that crowded wide receiver room. So this is good to get a transaction like this kind of out of the way a little bit early. And we look forward to training camp.
Definitely. Margie Cron said us YouTubers are the redheaded stepchildren with the crying emoji. Now, Margie Cron, I learned my lesson before. Whenever the stream, the channel just magically went down and they removed all the memberships. And I got flooded with DMs going, "Hey, what's up with the memberships, man? It's saying I'm not a member now and this and that." So the beautiful thing about Patreon is everything's protected over there. You know, we're not kind of, again, I like YouTube. I think YouTube's a great way to put out content, and that's why we go live on it every night. But some things they do without explanation, and they just kind of leave you hanging. That's why I've been wanting to switch. All it is the giveaways, right? Again, you can still be a member, you still get the emojis and all that good stuff on YouTube. It's just I'd hate for people to think, all right, man, we're going to be entered into any giveaways in the future. Then all of a sudden YouTube hits us with something, takes it down, the memberships are removed, and now everybody's like, what the heck? So it's just a way for really to protect you guys more so than that, and along with being a little more convenient with the giveaways. So anyway, giveaways are getting out of hand, but I'd rather do too many giveaways than not enough. So just a way to, like I said, show our appreciation. So Margie Cron, you are not the redheaded stepchild. I promise you that, buddy. We appreciate you more than you know. All right, let's get into it. This was really cool. Barryn Sorrell, right? You guys, you've already heard the draft night story and him getting emotional at the presser and all that. This was really cool, man. Tim, it seems like every day goes by, you fall in love with this dude a little bit more, and the fact that he's a Green Bay Packer. So this was a tweet, an X post that was put out by Michael Brandel, okay? And you're wondering, who the hell is that? I was wondering the same thing. I'll read it and let you guys kind of come up with your own assessment. I thought this was really, really cool. So it says, "It was the spring semester of 2022, and I received an email from a student in my intro to macroeconomics course at UT Austin. The student had not done well on the first exam, and he wanted to know what he could do to improve his grade. He said his schedule was very tight, and he could not make it to my office hours. So I agreed to meet with him over Zoom every week to go over the course material. I offered this to any student who wasn't doing well. Most never take me up on it. This guy did. Every week we would meet. He would tell me that what he got out of the readings and lectures. I would give him feedback, etc. I also learned he was from Louisiana and that he was on the football team. He was an interesting guy. His hard work paid off. He greatly improved his exam scores, and as his knowledge and understanding of economics grew, his name was Barryn Sorrell. You may have heard his name over the past few days if you follow the NFL, if you're a fan of the Green Bay Packers. Here is a brief clip of what happened during the draft with the NFL commissioner announcing his pick, which never happens for a fourth-round pick, put in parentheses. So when you hear Barryn talk about his work ethic in interviews, let me reassure you, this is not just hype. He works his butt off, and I'm happy to say it often pays off of him. He is truly inspirational story on many levels. Now, we're not going to play the video. You guys have seen it 1,000 times. You see his pops in the background crying. I believe that's his dad in the background all teared up. But just another example. I thought that was really cool, Tim, that his college professor at UT Austin just put that X post out there like, hey, y'all got you one, boys and girls. You got you one. Pretty neat.
Yep. And an example of just the work ethic, like he's saying, right? Football aside, it just tells you the character of the man, right? The guy that we're getting here in Green Bay. So we should all be grateful. And, if he works half as hard as he did in the classroom on the football field, we're going to be in for a treat. I think this could be another, much like Edgerrin Cooper kind of popped last year as a rookie. I think Barryn Sorrell could be that guy this year, really, for this team.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I want to be very clear about this too. This whole story was awesome. Being in the stadium as they announced his pick and watching him walk the stage from inside Lambeau Field was unbelievable.
Next level.
It was just everything about this situation I love. It doesn't make a hill of beans if he's not good at football, right? Now, based off what I've seen on the tape, I think he's got as good a shot as any to transfer right over to the NFL and be a good player and work his way in. Just like the scouting reports said, Tim, he would be a backup contributor with starter potential, right?
Yep.
And that's what you see. So I just love the fact that you've got such a stand-up guy, such a respectable young man that's going to be representing the Green Bay Packers. That's why I'm rooting for him more than anything. Honestly, I want Matthew Golden to work out. I want Savion Williams to work out. I want Anthony Belton, the whole 9 yards. This dude, when you see somebody who has that kind of raw emotion toward, for his family and bringing his family up, which is very similar to Matthew Golden's story as well. And just wants to be that team player. And again, what Dane Brugler said, that they talked to one NFL team, and they said they asked every Texas prospect that they had in an interviewing process. They said, hey, if you could bring one teammate with you, who would it be? They said it was Barryn Sorrell. Every single one of them had the same answer. So just pretty cool, man. I guarantee you that bumped him up on Goody's board. But when you get to the NFL, baby, it's all about football. Not all about football, but the majority of it is football, right? You still got to be a good human being, and obviously what you do in the community is just as important as what you do on the football field, but you got to produce. I'm rooting for them, though, man. I believe that good things happen to good people. You reap what you sow, all that. I think it's just a law that's sown into the earth. I really believe that, man. I
agree 100%, Clay. And, that type of energy, that work ethic, rookie or not, in a locker room, that's contagious, man. That guy is going to, everybody else in that locker room is going to see that energy and feed off of it too. Whether you're a veteran or you're, Matthew Golden, fellow rookie, whether it's Savion Williams, whoever, both sides of the ball, all three phases of the game, it doesn't matter. I think that's the type of player you want. And you got to root for a guy like that, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Chris Casualian said, how did Sorrell last until the fourth? Well, I think it goes hand in hand with what we talked about these other Texas defenders. You got all these different Texas defenders that were coming out in the draft, and it's, the conversation we always have, like, all right, which one is the hit? Because sometimes, they all don't pan out. It's like, okay, this guy had a little more inflated production in college because the other one was drawing attention away from him, and vice versa, right? I think that has something to do with it. I think he was a lower recruited guy, if I remember correctly. I think he was a 3-star coming out of high school, and he just had to kind of work his way up. I think it's just one of those examples of, it kind of reminds me of Clay Matthews' story. Obviously Barryn Sorrell was not built like Clay Matthews. Clay Matthews coming into college, I want to say his walk-on freshman year, I believe it was, he was 187 pounds, which is crazy to think about. And he worked his way up and finally started his senior year. Now, Barryn Sorrell, obviously a much bigger human being, but I think he's just one of those guys that, I don't know, man. I think it's just a testament to his upbringing, and you can see how close he was with his family.
Yep.
Hard work pays off, man. Go ahead, Jake. Or Tim, sorry, man. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and you're not to cut you off, and you're getting a guy who's going to be 100% committed, like from the get-go. You talk about bought in. Sometimes with first-year players, rookie players, it takes a while to, kind of convince them of what you're trying to do. This guy right here does not strike me as that type of dude. I think he's going to come in. It's going to be yes, sir, no, sir. What do you need me to do? If you want, 10 reps, I'll give you 20 reps. If you want 1 hour of film study, I'll give you 3 hours of film study. He just seems like a go the extra mile kind of guy, man. And I love it.
Yeah. D. Rant says, saw a video of Goot in the war room, and when the pick was being announced, he said he didn't know Sorrell was at the draft along with LaFleur. Yeah. If you guys go watch that 7-minute clip that the Packers tweeted out, kind of encapsulating the entire weekend in the draft, at that moment, you see Goody look over in the camera. You know how he is about no cameras in the war room. It looked like he made him stand in the hallway or something. But you see him look over and go, he's here? Like, it was really cool to see all that unfold for sure. As Coach Lynn says, you can build a team around a guy like that.
Yep.
It's so true, man. So true. And there's some people right now rolling their eyes going, what's his PFF grade? It's like, telling you, man, these are real human beings. And when the game's on the line and you ain't got enough gas in the tank to even, get your ass off the snap, you need guys like that you can look over. It's like the whole the Willie Davis story from way back in the day, right, with the Lombardi Packers, and Bill Curry telling that story of how he came from the South and all the racial divide, and he said he wasn't taught by his parents, but he was taught by the culture in which he lived that he was better than other humans, meaning by the color of his skin. And he said, and then I step into that huddle with Willie Davis and Willie Wood and Lyle Aldridge and all these just dominant, African-American athletes. And he said one day after training camp, he said, I was walking out of training camp practice at St. Norbert College. And he said, I heard a voice from the shadows say, Bill, he said, I thought it was God. I just sat down in the grass. And he said it was Willie Davis. And he said, I thought, oh, man, this is it. He's heard my Southern accent. He's going to send me home. He's going to tell me to go home. And he said, I've been watching you in practice, and I think you got a chance to make this team. And he said, and I'm going to help you do it. And I think he said something along the lines. I'm kind of getting choked up because it's just like, man, what a human being. He said, when Nitschke's snapping your face mask and Lombardi's screaming and there's blood everywhere, he said, you don't think you can do it. You said, you look over to me and I'll get you through it. And Bill Curry said, that's the difference between winning football teams. Some people have Willie Davis and some people don't.
That's
telling
right.
you, that kind of guy right there. And I'm not comparing a all-time great Hall of Famer to a rookie who hasn't played a snap in the league. I'm just saying that stuff matters.
Yeah, it does.
Holds a team together. It's huge, man.
Coach LaFleur spoke on that earlier in the week, right? He was asked about that, about guys that have, kind of their hearts on their sleeve and they're passionate, emotional guys and they care. Matt said he didn't want robots on this team. It's not about your PFF grade or your RAS score or being, going through the motions. Play with that fire. Play for a reason. Play for the guy next to you, and I think that's part of the culture that we have here and the culture that we've been fostering. So, Barryn Sorrell is going to fit just fine in Green Bay for sure.
Definitely. Afam says, when is Sorrell coming on the show? When this show doesn't suck, Afam, so don't hold your breath, okay, bub? It's just, you know the drill here. All right, let's talk cornerback and safety room here, Tim, as we round out the depth chart conversation we've been having here late. So, cornerback, man, where to begin? It's been an interesting few months here as the season wind down and everybody expecting Jair Alexander to be gone. He's still on the roster, obviously. There's still, I think the large majority of people still don't expect him to play for the Packers. However, as it sits right now, he is on the roster. So let's talk about what the cornerback room would look like with and without him. Okay, let's start with him here. So you would have, according to our lads, and again, it doesn't mean we agree with this, they're saying Jair Alexander at left cornerback, Keyshawn Nixon at right cornerback, Nate Hobbs, the newly added free agent out of Las Vegas, will be starting in the slot. Okay, so there's your starters. And they're saying backing those guys up is Carrington Valentine on the left, Micah Robinson on the right, and then Kalen King in the nickelback position. It's really interesting there.
That's interesting, yeah.
And again, we're not saying we agree with it, but I think as you get a little deeper on the depth chart, you can see how they come up with that. Because next you've got at left cornerback Isaiah Dunn, who, if I remember correctly, was a free agent signing. Technically, they signed him there to a futures, I believe it was. And then Caleb Hayes at the right cornerback position and Kamal Haddon in at nickelback. And then behind them, you've got Kazir Brown, Tyron Herring, and Jonathan Baldwin backing those guys up. So, for me personally, you want to throw Javon Bullard in the mix as well. I don't like the idea of him just sitting on the bench and you potentially working in Micah Robinson over him. Although I'm excited about Micah Robinson, and hopefully we can get a chalk talk put together on him before we get into training camp and all that. But I would definitely consider Javon Bullard ahead of that second wave of guys other than Carrington Valentine. And Carrington Valentine is the one that sticks out the most to me, Tim. If Jair Alexander's gone,
that's your CB1 over there.
I want him plugged right in where Jair would have been. And I know there's people going, what are you talking about, Clayton? Guys, the reality is when you look at the PFF grades last year, Jair Alexander 75.2, Carrington Valentine 65.5, then Keyshawn 64, Nate Hobbs 61.4, Javon Bullard 54.2. Carrington Valentine, hands down, has the highest PFF grade. And he had a coverage grade of 71.4, which was 11 points higher than the other guys who are not named Jair Alexander, right? So, okay, well, PFF isn't everything. I'm with you. What about passer rating when targeted? Okay, when you go to passer rating when targeted, cornerbacks, Jair Alexander, 79.9. Second on the team, Carrington Valentine, 82.8. And then you got to go all the way down to Eric Stokes at 96.7. Then Keyshawn Nixon at 97.5. And then Javon Bullard at 119.8. To keep in mind, he played a lot of safety as well, right? So for me, Tim, I want Carrington Valentine on the damn field this year, man. I do. Yeah. Now, if Ja's here, it's going to be tough, right? Because what it's going to come down to, if Jair does return to the Packers, it would be a camp battle between Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon. just feel like Keyshawn Nixon's kind of one of the coaching favorites on this team. So I think they would still start him over Carrington. But I really do believe Carrington Valentine's underrated. But anyway, whichever direction you want to take it, what do you think about this cornerback room, man?
Yeah, a lot to digest here, right? I think I'm with you 100% with the feelings on Carrington Valentine. And Javon Bullard to me is the interesting wild card because, if we look at this depth chart and take it at face value, a name could slide over or up or down on the depth chart at any time. But I think what this shows is, ideally they're looking for Javon Bullard to play safety, and they're
That's exactly right.
They'd be taking the approach of, your slots are going to be Nate Hobbs, Kalen King, and then in case of emergency break glass, it's Keyshawn Nixon, or maybe you have to shift Bullard into a slot corner role. But that's if Bullard can hold his own behind Evan Williams as a number 2 safety over there, with the coverage grade and stuff. So if he takes a step this year, that'll be interesting. Omar Brown, number 3 on the depth chart. Another guy that we were kind of keeping one eye open for that draft year in 2024. And we didn't see much of him last year. If he takes a step and shows that, he can hold his own, it gives us flexibility with that nickel position. But when it comes to the boundary corners, I'm with you. If Ja's not on this team or if Ja's not playing, it should be CV over there opposite of Keyshawn Nixon. And then hopefully you get a guy like Micah Robinson to pop. And hopefully Nate Hobbs and Kalen King do well in the slot, and we don't have to play chess all the time, moving pieces around. But I think a lot of this is going to hinge on Bullard and his ability to truly play safety in the NFL.
Definitely. And again, we'll kind of dive into the safety room here in a second and look at who we like over who if Evan Williams wasn't starting. But let's see what the chat's saying about the cornerback room here. Jake G126 says, I will say Bullard did pretty well for a rookie getting tossed around at different positions. That's a great point, Jake. And I feel like he hands down played his best football in the slot as opposed to safety. It just seems like he was more comfortable playing that nickel role and being able to attack against the run and them even fire him on some of those nickel blitzes too when they wanted to bring kind of a little bit of an exotic look there. So
I've always felt like Bullard is a linebacker trapped in a DB's body, basically.
Yeah, I could see that. He does play a little more like a linebacker than a cornerback. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Chris the Casual Win says Bull is being underrated at this point. I don't know if I guess it just depends on what you mean by underrated, Chris. I think some fans absolutely, That's why when I hear him talk about, he's a bust, and I'm like, you didn't like him in the nickel? I thought he looked pretty good in the nickel. When you look at the passer rating when targeted, it's a little bit skewed because I don't have the numbers breaking it down from which position he played. I do know that he graded out better when he moved to the nickels. So I think I would agree with what Chris is saying here, that he is being a little bit underrated based off of what he was asked to do. I mean, how many rookies, Tim, in the league that can jump around from nickel and then play both safety positions, whether they did it good or not? The fact that they were able to get out there and get that many meaningful reps. And I think we're kidding ourselves if we think he ain't going to be better this year,
I would agree. And I think that it's fair to make that assessment that, maybe underrated is not the word, maybe overlooked, in some respects or, whatever, verbiage you'd like to use there. But I agree. I think he's poised for a year 2 jump. And, if he can pop at that safety position, it's going to help him and help us really.
Right. Daryl in the chat says Jonathan Baldwin was signed on a $115,000 signing bonus and $100K guaranteed. That's great information there, Daryl. And I think that stuff does matter to a certain extent. However, I will say this. I remember us having this conversation about I can't remember the specific player, but that was the big talking point was, he'll definitely make the roster because he got the most guaranteed money. And they end up cutting him. And I remember going, well, I was wrong on that one. So I think it really does come down to fielding the best team. However, that is important. Thank you for that information. Sure. Professor Cake says, I agree, Clayton, on CV. It shows how much he has developed because even you as a Kentucky fan did not mince words when talking about how CV did in his rookie year. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, Professor Cakes. Like he was hot garbage his rookie year. And then last year he takes that big leap, that step forward, played a lot of meaningful reps or snaps, I should say. And that's what I think gives me a little bit more hope about Javon Bullard, just to see the jump that a 7th-round pick in Carrington Valentine took. You'd like to think a 2nd-rounder could definitely take that kind of jump as well. I know we got Emilio joining us here. Emilio, we'll just work you in whenever you feel comfortable to comment. I know you're coming in on what the heck are we even talking about, but we're just looking at the cornerback room. Then we're going to jump into the safety room before we get into a little Colin Oliver talk.
Good deal.
All right, Deadfish says, I'm okay with Carrington Valentine being a backup this year, but he will probably be starting. Maybe he meant next year. Be starting next year. Maybe is what he meant. He said we'll probably be starting this year. But yeah, for me with Carrington, I think he's proven that he can play at this level. That's what it comes down to for me.
So we broke camp with 5 corners last year, right?
Yeah. Let me double check. Let me pull up the article. Talk for a second. I'll grab that.
I think it was 5 corners, 5 safeties, if I'm not mistaken. So that just poses the question based on this, way too early depth chart prediction. If they were to keep 5 corners, who do you think the 5 are?
Yeah, it was 5 corners.
Was it? Okay, so let's assume it's 5 again, just for the sake of argument.
Right. Yeah, you had 5 corners and 5 safeties. The 5 corners were Jai Alexander, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Corey Valentine. So you're replacing 2 of those guys, obviously, with 2 new faces. One being Nate Hobbs. You can go ahead and check that off the box.
Yep.
So that now you're asking yourself, who's the 5th? That's really what it comes down to. If they break camp with the same amount, and who's to say that they will or won't? But if you look at it here, according to the depth chart, you'd think it's Kalen King, right? Looking at this,
I would think so, right? Yeah,
that's exciting too because I think Kalen King's got a high ceiling. I really do. What do you think about the cornerback room, Emilio? Anything stick out to you before we move to safety, man?
Man, it's just tough looking at it because at first I was like, all right, left corner, right corner, we're good, and then I have to look down. I've still got to get Hobbs in there. Kalen King, I think it's between him and Micah Robinson, really. So that's tough. The way when Ryan was doing his pod earlier, him going into talking about wanting to be here, just playing the best, his attitude, I really loved it. But man, I really liked Kalen King too, and he was supposed to be the top, like a top 5 corner when he came out. Then had a bad year that second year.
Definitely. Joseph in the chat says, without Jair, I'm worried about that DB room. I want to agree with you on the surface, Joseph, but we played without Jair last year, And again, as we pointed out, and I'm not saying Jair isn't a good football player. Don't get me wrong. I think the team is better with him on it. He missed almost 70% of the snaps last year, right? If I remember correctly, it was over 65% of the snaps. 65, But with that being said, they still finished top 5 in EPA per dropback, So it's like, I honestly think that's one of the things that's fueling Goody to be willing to part ways with Jair. Is he's looking up going, man, if I could save that cap space, and I think our DB room's good enough. If they truly did hit on Nate Hobbs in free agency, that can make all the difference in the world as well. So very interesting though. Anything else on corner, guys, before we move on? Anything at all?
No, I think it's a great point. Like how we did play well last year. We had 2 safeties on the field, 3 safeties on the field a lot. I mean, you have Evan Williams, you got Javon Bullard, you got X, and we're worried about grabbing that 5th or 6th corner. What if we just need 2 on the outside and they're still running the safeties in the middle? So it's, are we going big nickel, whatever you want to call it? I'm kind of excited to see Hafley, do his thing this year.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Joseph says if we can't work it out, then we're 1 injury away from Travis Glover being on the boundary. Emilio said, "Hey, listen, he can play press man. He ain't worried. He can
play press man. All you need is 3 seconds to get to the quarterback. So
we gonna put my boy Quay out there. He'll be the first one to move if that happens."
Exactly. All right, let's move on to safety room, guys. So with the safety room, there's multiple angles we could take here, right? Just kind of looking at how everything lays out. Xavier McKinney, he's locked in. Evan Williams, I'm a little concerned about this because I'm getting the vibe that they may think Javon Bullard should start over Evan Williams. And to quote the great Michael Scott, me no likey that, Jan. I thought Evan Williams played pretty darn good last year. And I went to looking at some of the grades and the statistics. Grades-wise, when it came to safety. Let me see if I can get them up there real quick. You had Xavier McKinney at 84.7. Then you had Zane Anderson, 80.8, albeit 122 snaps. Katano Ladapo, 72.9. No surprise there. Evan Williams, 72.5. Javon Bullard, 54.2. So do you guys think there's a realistic chance, and we'll round out the entire safety room seeing that the Packers kept 5 last year. Do you think there's a realistic chance that they would start Javon Bullard over Evan Williams at safety? And how do you guys feel about that? Let's start with you this time, Emilio. What do you think about that question?
I do believe that they're going to, I really have a feeling that you're going to want to put Javon out there, say, hey, give him his best opportunity instead of having him move up and down like he did a lot last year. If we're going to put, Hobbs in the nickel, if that's how it's going to be, fine. You have to give Bull a full, couple week, 4, 5, 6 week chance at being safety the whole time, not having to worry about going down and all that, so that he can, really get his feet in there. I mean, yeah, I love how Evan played, but I do think that they're going to want to try Bull at his safety spot and say, win that spot and keep it for the rest of the year. That's probably what they would want him to do.
What do you think, Tim?
I would agree. I still feel like it's a little early, but I think, at this point, looking at it, that's probably realistic. They want to see if Bullard can actually, really play that safety spot rather than just being a nickel corner for us. And, we talked about that a lot with Bullard last year, is he didn't really get a chance to kind of get a rhythm, because as soon as he got comfortable or built any kind of rhythm, they were moving him. You get used to playing in the slot, and then all of a sudden you're moved back. Evan Williams goes down, misses a couple of games. Now you're having to play opposite Xavier McKinney, and there was a little bit of struggle for him. So I think maybe year 2 as a pro, year 2 in Halfley's system, maybe they do make the effort to, get him those number 1 reps and see if he can be that guy. Either way about it, I feel really good about the safety room. Even with the 6 we're looking at right now, let's say they take 5, Omar Brown's probably the odd man out. You still feel really, really good about that safety room as a whole.
Let me ask you guys this. Who do you think had the best passer rating when targeted amongst our safety room last year?
X.
Close. It was Zane Anderson.
What a dog.
Here's a guy, and he's real.
Yeah. Xavier McKinney's passer rating when targeted, 57.1. Guess what Zane's was?
25%.
Lower.
It was 0.
It was 0, according to PFF.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? And you think, okay, yeah, minimal snaps. He actually had 75 coverage snaps. And to the best of my knowledge, did not give up any catches, had an interception, had another pass breakup. Pretty wild, man. Receiving percentage was 0. Xavier McKinney's receiving percentage was 70.3. However, you guys know the interceptions are going to help that passer rating when targeted. So it was actually Zane Anderson first. Katano Ladapo tied for that as well. Now, he only had 45 coverage snaps, but he didn't give up a catch either. His was 0. Then you had Omar Brown, who only had 7 snaps. We're not going to talk about that. Xavier McKinney, however, 57.1, but he had 678 coverage snaps and a coverage grade of 90.2. That's wild. And then, of course, you go on down to the next safety would be Evan Williams at a 99.5. And then, of course, Javon Bullard at 119.8. So it bothers me to think that we may march Javon Bullard out there and just like you know what it kind of feels like. And again, I think Bullard is a good slot corner. I think an above average slot corner is what we've seen last year with potential to step into that good or very good, phase of his career. But the thing that I keep thinking about is how many times did we recognize and say, why are we not giving Josh Myers any competition at center? And it's like, it's because he's a second-round pick. Well, where was Javon Bullard drafted? Again, I'm not trying to dog Javon Bullard. I'm just saying, like, I can just see this playing out with the coaching staff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I hear you.
And I can also see it working to turn out in a way where they do throw him into the fire, and if he's not ready, then we're back where we were with Evan Williams in the one slot, right?
Right.
No, and I see your point, Clay. Definitely, because you want to have competition in every room. Specifically, the room that you reset last year with the draft. And Evan, I think you also look at, Evan went down with the injury. Bull got hurt for a little there too, right? So you want to maybe look at consistency, who's out there. But I guess I just feel like they're going to want to put him out there first. But you're right. How fast are we going to switch and say, all right, Evan, get out there? Are we going to be on rotation? Is it going to be a flip-flopping thing where they do the half plays on defense and just split it basically? So right. They have a couple of methods to go at it. We really just need to make sure that we can let them get into a groove.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we broke camp last year at the safety position with 5. They were Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Zane Anderson, and Katano Ladapo. All 5 of those are returning. All 5 of those are going to make the roster. So when you look at the safety room, that's what I'm seeing. Right. You're going to have the same exact safety room and Omar Brown on the practice squad. That's kind of what I'm looking at. So
right. It's just a matter of who's going to be what on the depth chart. Mm-hmm. And we'll see what camp dictates, right?
Yeah. Coach Lynn says, I wonder if we see more 3 safety sets with X, Bull, and Williams at the same time. Let's try to mock that out a little bit, Coach. I think it's possible, but it would be Bullard in the slot. So, we kind of seen it last year, right? But he was playing nickelback. So I don't really look at it like a 3 safety set simply because Bullard played corner last year, and more specifically at the nickel. So when you look at it like that, now if you're talking about like a 3 deep set, we didn't see that in Green Bay, although that is something that's starting to trickle into the NFL just a touch. It became popular at the college game. We talked about that. 2 high shell was looking popular, and then all of a sudden it's the 3 high shell. Thank God we did not, we did not go to the 3 high shell last year. But I heard you say, Emilio. What's on your mind?
I dabble in a little 3 high when I'm playing a little college football. Yeah.
Of course you do, because everybody online head-to-head just wants to wing that thing around the yard.
Dude, it's 2-step drop and throw a deep ball. But I was looking through the PFF grades. It's tough because Evan Williams is 24th. Sandwiched between the 2 Bears, Kevin Byard and Elijah Hicks, but 24th, X being 4th out of the safeties last year. So, how do you say, all right, we're going to take basically a starting number 1 safety off the field? That's where the coaches need to make a decision or need to make a plan on how to approach it.
Yep. Yeah. And if KT Oladapo takes a step, it's going to be real interesting this year.
Yeah. Coach Lynn asked, so I mean more dime defense, I guess. Gotcha.
Okay, I got you.
I think that's going to come down to the team you're playing that week. How many teams do we know that plays a lot of 4 wide receiver sets? I guess if the question I guess what I'm asking, Coach, is if your question is, are we going to send out a dime against 11 personnel? I personally don't see it unless it's just one of those 3rd and long situations where you want to maximize the coverage. I think they will stick to their nickel 4-2-5. But what do you
right? All I was going to say was, what safety would you trust, or what nickel would you trust to, if they had to step into the box and play a linebacker role, even if they were in diamond, but you got to pull them in. It's probably got to be Bullard.
Yeah, it does. It does. And we've seen Zane Anderson bring a pop a time or two. Of course, he's bleeding with his head and getting a concussion too, right? So it's like, but I'm with you. If I had to choose, hey, you got to take anybody from the safety room to play that nickel, it's definitely Bullard for me. As much as I like Evan Williams, I like him top down as opposed to, kind of playing in that slot. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Good stuff there. All right. I said top down, and that Afam got real excited in the chat there. So, as Deadfish says, as always in recent years, cut down day is going to be difficult, man. It really is. There's no 2 ways about it. And it seems like it gets tougher and tougher every year. Again, I think the safety room is pretty well set, barring any injuries. The cornerback room with Jair, again, just a recap, is real simple. If you keep 5, it's going to be Jair, Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, and then you're going to add 2 more in Carrington Valentine. And if Javon Buller's counting as a safety, then it's going to come down to either Kalen King or Michael Robinson, right? And I think they proved that they can have Kalen King stashed on the practice squad. I don't know if they feel like a team may jump up and grab Michael Robinson or not. You know, the beautiful thing about Kalen King not playing last year is there's nothing on tape to warrant a team being more excited about him than they were with him coming out of the draft, where he went essentially in the 7th round, and then he made it through waivers when we put him on the practice squad, you know. So
right,
it's not
unless he goes off in the preseason.
Exactly. And that's where you, as a GM and a head coach, man, those games are being played too, much like the contractual situation we talk about, where you're going to kind of limit touches on a player that's coming up on a contract if you don't need them to get inflated stats and boost that cap number. Same thing there. Like if you got a guy that you go, man, really like him on the practice squad, let's don't put anything on tape for another team to fall in love with. You know? So I think those games really do happen for sure. But anything else with the safety room you guys want to hit on, fellas? Are we good?
No, we're good.
All right. Good deal. All right. Well, for those of you listening on the pod, that's going to do it for hour 1. We'll see you on the other side for hour 2, where we're going to talk a little Colin Oliver scouting report and get into some Savion Williams chalk talk. We'll see you over there. We appreciate you.